Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my Final Fantasy Type 0 HD perspective. And I really did not like this Final Fantasy game. See, I mainly got into Final Fantasy, like I'd rented Final Fantasy X when there was places to rent it for the PlayStation 2, and I wasn't able to beat it during that rental. I'm like, okay. The biggest kind of one that got me into it was Final Fantasy 15 years later. Now granted, I had played 4, got to a stopping point in like the DS, but then 15, even with all of its kind of faults, and I'll do a perspective on that as well, really got me more intrigued on the series to play through different kind of other ones. And granted, I probably won't do a complete replay of that one, but I might do replays of the certain ones that I got on PlayStation, on Xbox, to show that, hey, Square Enix, I kind of want these games here. And this was part of the ones that I hadn't played before that I played on Xbox. And I've had a kind of certain ranking of Final Fantasy games, and this one took the top spot and the bottom for me, the worst one. It was like, okay, I've had issues with Final Fantasy VIII, and this was like, they decided to make Final Fantasy VIII even kind of worse for me, with the whole military school and 14 characters. Now, I like RPGs, I like role-playing with certain characters, and I like parties and leveling people up. I love Dragon Quest, which, incidentally enough, is done by Square Enix as well. But you can't effectively juggle that many characters in an RPG, and it really hits home because none of them are fleshed out to any degree other than archetypal weird bullshit. And the thing is, this thing is built to be played through multiple times. I was dragging and beating my head just doing it once because there's certain objectives I have when I play a video game. But my two core pillars are story, which story, characters, world, all that kind of stuff with the narrative, and gameplay. This was like just basic kind of gameplay and really shitty, complex, convoluted, everywhere fucking story. Like, oh my god, with like no characters that jumped out to me whatsoever. Never mind that this is a port of a portable game that does some weird funky fucking shit where your main character playing parties are nice and upscaled, and then everybody else is like fucking shit scaled. It's like, oh my god. And it's more of an action kind of route, more kind of like Final Fantasy 15, which I didn't have a problem with that. However, the gameplay loop itself is built more as a portable kind of one, and it just gets tedious. Bungie, when they were playing Halo, was like this kind of constant loop of like 30 seconds of fun. And with those kind of first-person shooters, how they kind of built it, even though you're doing the same kind of thing, I can just go around and fuck around. Like, I could replay those all day, every day, the mainline Halo games, and just have fun, and just fuck around and be like, alright, yeah, I'm cool, I'm doing this. Here, I just didn't have fun with it. It wasn't the worst experience I'd had. Deadly Premonition takes that, because when I didn't have to actively fight this game. However, the systems were fucking stupid to where I had to fucking find certain kind of workarounds. I'm talking about where you have an overworld where you're like whatever level, like, and we've got level 99 motherfuckers rolling around. Like, when we're going from the academia kind of place and trying to do certain kind of things, that's stupid. Like, I don't mind exploring and finding a fuckity-doo-dah being like, I'm gonna push your shit in. But when I need to actively get to a place and then have to fucking circumvent and like run around in a circle to make sure a thing doesn't fucking kill me before I even get there, because I have no, like, I gotta fucking breed chocobos to be able to outrun the motherfucker? Especially in the beginning, you're just like, oh god, whatever. It's a system you then have to deal with. Granted, it's a poorly designed system in my opinion, but it's not broken to the point where I actually have to fight certain kind of things like in Deadly Premonition. And Granted, these are my feelings on it. If you like this game and it's your favorite Final Fantasy game, cool. Again, my objective in these reviews is not to shit on anybody's like of games. There are certain games that I like that are probably considered horrendous fucking bullshit. And I get that. Like, I can take that and be like, okay, this game isn't good, but I got enjoyment out of it. You know what I mean? And I can reconcile those kind of facts. Now, granted, that doesn't mean that you should take my thing and be like, this is like objectively bad. This is why I believe it's bad. I always like to have these to create the dialogues for perspectives and reviews. But here, it's just like, this is an impediment for, like, players, because it's like, how do I fucking dodge and get around this? And especially with a portable one, when your game time is limited, I'm like, why the fuck would you do this? This is just unneeded frustration to have this going around, unless it's put in as a system for the second playthrough around. It's like, oh, okay, you should be beefed up enough to fucking thunder kick something. But even then, the highest I got was like high 30s, low 40s for certain ones, because at a certain point I just said fuck it and I didn't give a shit, and I only like leveled up certain ones enough to actually get me through the story because I didn't care about the characters. And design wise, 14 characters is bonkers. I've played RPGs and JRPGs. They are part of my favorite kind of gaming memories and favorite kind of ones to play. Both old school ones and new school ones, from Final Fantasies of old that I've actually played recently, and the Persona series, and Dragon Quest, Blue Dragon. Played a little bit Lost Odyssey, but that has gameplay mechanics that just fuckity. I rented that, but then I got it downloaded because it was free on Xbox. I'm like, ugh. But RPGs and JRPGs, Tales series, I'm into them. I love them for their quirks and their weirdness, especially when they get characters or they play with the tropes of like, oh yeah, we're gonna fucking kill God, and seeing how that kind of works out, because granted, it's a trope of the thing, but sometimes the important bit is the journey of seeing the characters actually go through that fucking insanity to kind of deal with it and see how they kind of do it. This, I didn't care about it because it was executed so poorly. I didn't care about really Class Zero until the fucking end. And I didn't even, and that was just cursory care, because it's like, okay, you executed the scene well enough. Where the fuck was this throughout my entire runtime? Because I didn't care about what they were doing in school. I actually didn't care about the other, like, the characters in it, because I'm like, okay, Ace is the leader. We got Machina and Rem, who are supposed to spy on these. Like, they were the most fleshed out because they come out as the outsiders looking in on Class Zero. But we got, like, dumb one, positive one, dumb one again, but this one female, because there's a super dumb one, like, that just goes and shouts yo and shit like that. It's like, oh sweet Jesus. But the main overarching thing is this, like, war that starts popping off because these 4 cities have crystals. This is part of, like, the crystal thing that evidently they were trying to do, of, like, different kind of multiverses and shit. And it's like, well, not different universes and all that, so each nation has, like, certain crystals. They have these things to see, which are, like, people that are bound to the crystal, and they have a focus, and they're, like, superpowered immortal beings, and if they fulfill their focus, they turn into crystals themselves, which I'm like, I don't give a shit, because there's a difference between building a world and then vomiting jargon that people are supposed to know or have context for, and if you make it onerous enough that, like, hard enough to actually, like, interact with your story, people check out. That's what happened to me. I could have delved into certain kind of stuff, but if I need to go on a hunt and essentially read books in the game, now granted, there's a balancing act with this. I'm talking about reams of certain stuff to get history of, like, all the different nations, why this thing would be going on, what's kind of going on, why Milites is attacking Rubrum and Concordia, and this other place that actually really got nuked, and that place got, like, fucked up, and one dude popped up and you fight him as a boss battle, but that's about the extent you get of this kind of fucking thing. And it's like trying to do this stuff of, like, war and all that, but if I've got to delve into it, essentially read a book. I'd rather read a book than play the game, because you've now just shifted me to a different kind of medium. Now, granted, if it's little kind of stuff that I'm really interested in and gives me value add, that's very different. Like I'm playing Marvel's Spider-Man on PlayStation 5, and I love Spider-Man, I love Marvel, and I'm reading how all the different kind of stuff in this world works out. Reading Peter's bio, Mary Jane's, Kingpins, Mr. Negatives, all these different kind of characters, and that gives me value add to the story, but it's not something that I need to enjoy the story. Here, I need a fucking primer just to fucking understand the whole goddamn context and complexities of what's going on with all these crystal states, and I don't get it. And the thing is, I get to a point where I'm like, nobody's pulling me in. This world isn't pulling me in. I'm not going to go through it. I'm just going to see if I get any fun from it. And I didn't. So it's pretty much tacked out and is essentially like they saw Persona games and decided to do a school story thing and be like, okay, so you go out on missions, you fight these things, you kind of should grind some stuff, and then you do day management at the school, talking with these people, doing these stories and everything, but you're never given enough time or certain kind of things to line up to work it out on a first playthrough, so you have to do second playthroughs or subsequent playthroughs afterwards and whatnot, and it's just, it didn't appeal to me. Like with Persona and Dead Rising that have similar kind of timing mechanics. If you work things out correctly enough, you can do everything in one shot. Now, granted, sometimes it takes more finessing, and I think that Dead Rising was a little bit on the harsher end in the beginning, though granted they went way too on the easy mode kind of. Now, granted, if they just had easy mode and then time mode, do it. Player choice. I love that shit. Do it. Accessibility, turn off QTEs, QuickTime events, and all that, and have the options. Give the players the options of how they want to play and scale that kind of shit. But here, I had to waste time and figure out how to like advance the story forward because I'm like, I don't want to do that shit. Get me out the fuck of this. And we just see them. We see these child soldiers being utilized in these war scenarios and everything, and just fighting against Milites, and then being framed for pretty much assassinating a queen, and then going through more, and then like the fucking apocalypse happens. It's like, what the fuck's going on? And we fight the one Sid dude who was trying to become Agito, legend, because evidently these gods were judging the world, and there needed to be an Agito, and if there wasn't, they're going to wipe out the world. And it leads to some kind of time loop thing of why you are doing this stuff. And certain kind of things you harness for like magic and shit are like souls, but it's just all jumbled together, thrown together with little coherency, and it's just like, what? So we get to the end, we get the class, they fight and they defeat the Sid dude, but they all die in the end, and we see Rem and Machina, the outsiders, lamenting their loss. We learned that the crystals pretty much conk out, and that Machina and Rem bring civilization back and then die. And I feel nothing for it. I'm like, oh, now granted, these children, these teenagers dying and having their kind of scene together was affecting. It was executed well enough. It's like, oh, damn. If only I felt this or really got any of a little bit more character depth from them, this would have been a really great game. But it's just so strangely done. I understand that you have to tune things differently for a portable game, okay? But I think this is a poorly made portable game where they sacrifice everything of just being like, hey, let's do it this way, because I could see like one of the kind of main kind of arguments being that, oh, it's a portable game. They need to make sure that it's got a short enough kind of consumption depending upon what playtime can be worked on. And granted, I agree there. You won't see me saying that needs to be taken into consideration. That very much does. That should not come at the coherency and cohesiveness of the story and being able to execute stuff in the best kind of way possible. I'm not advocating that you need a 4-hour Metal Gear Solid cutscene for me to understand what's going on and to make sure that I care about these characters. However, these cutscenes and these stories need to be woven together in such a way that it works and you're able to understand what's going on. I didn't, and the thing is, this game couldn't make me care to get into that and want to dive into that and correct that. There are certain games that I'm like, what the fuck's going on? But then I get into certain kind of things. I click with a certain kind of gameplay loop or certain mechanic, and then, oh god, I get to this story part and I get everything going on. I'm like, all right. Marvel Spider-Man's really drawing me in. And I'm like, yes, all right, I understand why people were into this. Other Final Fantasy games pulled me into the characters and the settings and the world, and I wanted to see what was going on and learn more about each character, even in Final Fantasy VIII. But this is like the worst case scenario. It's just like, wow, I don't care about any of them. I really don't care about the world. I understand what they're trying to say about war and using children soldiers and all that kind of stuff, but it's executed in such a way that I'm like, wow, you are trying to say something, but saying really nothing because you laid along these jargons and just word spewings. Like, let's see, they start dropping all of this kind of shit and trying to even like catch up with it. You're just like, whatever, fine. It's just they're gonna spew stupid shit. Like, you could say stuff like that happening in Mass Effect or The Witcher or whatnot, but they never make it at the expense of the player feeling stupid for not knowing what's kind of going on. Certain things are like, the hallmark of good writing is essentially interweaving these kind of things and like learning about certain kind of things. And even though they know what's going on in the story, the characters, they're able to make it so that way a observer like us are able to understand what's going on without them being like, yes, let me regale you with the complete and utter history of Rubrum ad nauseum. Just as someone who's like, I'm the Chancellor of Rubrum. You think I don't know what the fucking history of this country is, you dumb fucking shit? Unless you even do it as a history lesson, which they could have done because they're in a school setting. Oh my god. And the combat is just basic kind of action-y stuff. Nothing on the level that we had on like Final Fantasy 15 or even kind of like a Devil May Cry kind of series. I do need to play Final Fantasy, I said 15, right? I haven't played 16 yet, but I do plan on it because of all the good things that I've heard about it. And even though there have been Final Fantasies, I'm like, what the fuck? And this one is like the worst, what the fuck? I'm still into this series. I still want to give chances to what's kind of going on here. It will be interesting to see how Final Fantasy 14 does on Xbox, MMO and all that, because, again, I've heard good things on that. But this, it doesn't have the hallmarks of Final Fantasy. It just was like somebody had an idea, they wanted to attempt it, and it was just executed poorly. And that's fine. I like studios taking chances and trying to do things differently. And as long as you learn if something goes completely and utterly fuckballs nutty, like here, and what was going on with Final Fantasy 13, and the problems that happened with Final Fantasy 15, what happened with Final Fantasy 14 when it was first introduced, and they remade the fucking shit out of it and made it like a bomb-ass MMO. I always like to give studios the benefit on that kind of rationale. I'd be like, okay, this was bad, please learn from it. And then, of course, I have to retool myself as well to be like Cyberpunk. That wasn't cool. You're like, it's gonna work here. It's like, what? Okay, it took... That really made me reevaluate CD Projekt Red. And then, again, just... I have few studios where I pre-order things anymore. Or franchises. And it was just like, alright, that takes that off. Wait and see. And I really am glad that I played this. And you might be like, wow, it sounds like you didn't really get anything out of this. I'm like, I did. Even at a game that I don't have fun or I don't think is good and has problems, I learned things from. I learned why, because of game design choices, of story and world and character choices, why these things bother me, trying to articulate these things, and then also to hear why other people like them, and if that can help me understand things better, see it from a different perspective, while maybe not even still changing my mind of like, okay, I played this, this is what I got from it, I ain't touching that again. Like, figuring out which ones can be the ones that be replayed and whatnot, and all that as well. So, as a Final Fantasy game, I wouldn't really recommend this except to the hardest core Final Fantasy players that want to play every Final Fantasy game. For the turn-based ones, definitely not. It's not turn-based, and there are the turn-based ones that you can go play and have fun with. I still need to finish 4 at some point. I'm almost to the end of it. I really wish that it could be ported from to like one of the modern day consoles. I think it's in a pack that's in PlayStation and Switch, though I would really like it to be coming to Xbox. But we'll see. I never thought we'd get Persona on Xbox, and again, that is another one that I would like to do some certain perspectives on as well. But I wouldn't recommend it, especially if you're into the turn-based ones. If you're into those, you know which ones. You could go play those. Of course, there's Dragon Quest 11. We'll see how 12 pops off, but I just did not enjoy this one. They did nothing really well to endear any character to me whatsoever. Definitely not the 14. Juggling 14 characters to make sure that they are all in level alignment is insanity. Trying to make sure that like your party in any kind of reasonable JRPG or RPG kind of game is difficult enough as it is, but you're usually able to like swap around characters enough and level them up to, you could go to like a certain area where the lower level character is well below the area that you're fighting in, but you got your beefed up tank team that can like carry them, and then you just get a lot of XP and everything. Here you'd have to do weird funky ass shit that you just had to do that, but at 14 characters. No, that's... God, no. So, that... The world is just convoluted. It has potential, but they don't execute on it well enough, in my opinion. Characters, barely there. Oh, God. Gameplay is just okay. So, I really wouldn't recommend this, but... if you're into Final Fantasy and you want to play every Final Fantasy game, you'll get enjoyment out of it. It's got the chocobos, it's got the crystals, it's got all the different kind of hallmarks of Final Fantasy, but not done to the level that had previously been done before, and has been achieved since. So those are my opinions on the game. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.